Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empower Network. It's been a busy, busy day today, and I'm so excited to have Sheri-lee with us today. So, welcome, Sheri-lee.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So, tell us a little bit about who you are, your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Jenny, for having me and actually just being a part of the Women's Empower Network. It's been really great to see all the motivating speakers that you've had on board with you. And yeah, so I'm excited to be able to share a little bit about my story today. So my name is Sheri-lee Voigt, and I am a wellness and yoga coach. I focus in on life coaching and empowerment with a side of wellness. um, I'm basically kind of like what you see is what you get, but I've been able to come to this point in my life through all the trials and tribulations, which I'm sure a lot of us out there have had. And a little bit of my backstory is I was born in a really small town in Nakusp. Right now I'm coming to you from Kelowna in British Columbia. So Nakusp is a little town in the mountains, probably about 3.5 hours west of here. And I was born there and just had an experience of just being free. We had an acreage. As a little kid, I wanted to run around and be Wonder Woman. We had like 15 horses, and to me, that was like it was amazing. It was just so adventurous, and I always reflect on that part of my life as being who I want to become today. I still want to be Wonder Woman, and then kind of through that process, my parents divorced when I was 6, and then we moved from that small little town. We moved to another little town called Lillooet, and it was a bit of a challenge because when we moved there, I was a little bit overweight as a kid, and I got extremely bullied, and it was just traumatizing for me. So going through a divorce and then having a little, experience with being bullied for being overweight really set me up for some emotional and mental challenges as I progressed. And for me, looking at these moments, it actually made me a lot stronger as a person. It made me come to terms with who I am, and then accept who I was, and also reach out and get the support that I needed. And so through high school, I learned how to navigate my way around being bullied and standing up for myself. And that led to getting a lot more confidence within myself, and really tuning into who I was. And I wasn't going to settle for anything less. And that took me to becoming a traveler. I traveled to Australia and New Zealand for a year. We lived in the Kingdom of Tonga for a month, and that really embraced my adventure side. It brought out some different sides that I didn't know I had, and that was we worked for or we were experiencing being parts of commercials and TV shows and doing advertising for car companies, and it led me to all these different things, even getting in and exploring what maybe a stunt life would look like at Universal Studios. So it was all the adventure I'd been seeking. And for a year we traveled, we experienced life, and at that point I felt like I needed to find my purpose. I had all these beautiful moments, but once I came home after a year of traveling, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to see myself? And so I started
How old,
to,
let me ask, how old were you at that time?
yeah, so I was 22 at that time. And it was, yeah, so 22 years old, and I had gone to school to become a teacher originally, and I had dropped out. I was just like, oh, I don't think this is for me. And so I was just really trying to navigate like who I was as a person. And so basically I was able to come up with, I just trying different jobs and exploring who I was. So I landed a couple different jobs in the service industry, and then in acting and doing commercial work, and then it went to becoming a director of a radio station for promotion. So I was just like this flying squirrel of like, here I am, and a bundle of energy, right? And I just didn't know what to do with myself. But I'm kind of bringing my story to just say that I've had so many different life experiences of where I took myself and was able to navigate myself through. So basically, from going in all different directions, I ended up north in Fort St. John, and I met my ex-husband at the time, and we actually founded a company in the oil field, and we were doing really well. And I was doing books, and I thought, okay, this is my purpose. And having 2 kids, I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. I finally settled here. I felt really good. And then, unfortunately, about 2.5 years into our marriage, some unfortunate events occurred where I had to move with my children to Kelowna for their safety, and my whole world came crashing down. And I just went, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And we went through a 5-year battle in for a divorce, and I ended up at that time either just turning into myself, and this is where my main purpose for my coaching, my wellness is now coming from, is just the strength that I was able to find in myself through being a part of such a life-shattering event that happened, where I no longer had my husband. Unfortunately, he was I was in a very controlled situation, money and mentally. And so I was just there starting off from scratch again. And I was able to get through it with the support of my tribe, of my family and my friends, and to also just turn into myself and have a real faith of where I wanted to take myself. And through that time, I finally got through the 5 years of just being able to represent myself in the Supreme Court and settled, and then move on. A biggest piece that I bring to my coaching is being able to lead with love. And for me, there's so many things that I hated about my life at that time that had happened, and so frustrated at that situation that it was eating me alive. And in that moment, I was able to turn in and say, give yourself that freedom to release any type of control or hate, and just replace it with love. And maybe some things that people are doing are not the best, but at the same time, if you let that harness where your heart's at, you're gonna destroy your wellness and destroy yourself. So from that moment on, I chose to lead with love, and now start putting my work, kind of my trauma into being able to help others through what I had experienced. And so a whole range of things that I do cover are, from people that are going through divorce, and what that looks like for yourself and for your kids, and how you can communicate. I have 2 lovely children now. They're oh my gosh, my daughter's going to be 21 November the 19th, and then I have a son who is 18, and they've just turned out lovely. And I'm so blessed that they both have huge hearts. And to me, that is a reflection of open communication, and just being able to be raw in the moment, and and lead with that love. So that's one thing that I really like to teach in my coaching and wellness practice, is not only how you can lead for love for others, is that you have to internally love yourself first. And for me, that was huge. And being within controlled situations, and being mentally manipulated, it really took me a long time to be able to look in the mirror and just love who I was, and love myself, and be able to just trust in yourself, and that fear of not doing good enough or not being good enough. And it really had an impact. So a big part of that is how do you turn your craziness that's happening in life, because it happens for everybody, right? There's different journeys, and how do you turn that into a positive? How do you turn that into making yourself stronger, and like a warrior princess mode, rather than let life make you rather than break you, is kind of my motto. So 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 that was really great. I mean, it wasn't great, but I'm glad, everything, I tried to take the positives and learn from situations. And then I was able to start my own practice in coaching and also fitness. So I did a lot of in-home, go in and train people in their beautiful mansions. And, and you're looking at people going, okay, fitness is good, but we need a wellness portion. So I took my yoga teacher training through a gentleman, Manish Pol, in India during COVID when it hit. So I was just like, they opened it up online, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And so I added that to my practice of just of being able to not only coach people to find, to look at themselves and go, okay, where do I want to be? How did I get here? And look at it from an in the moment perspective. And then also be able to add a wellness piece with the yoga and breath work and meditation. And so for me, I feel very blessed now. Where I'm currently at is I also have another job, and I help within people that are on income assistance, and I help in crisis and help them to navigate their way through challenging times. But I've just been in my heart, I'm like, I really love what I do in the coaching world of being able to look at somebody and, like, let's say you and I are just starting off and I'm like, okay, let's do this. I look at you like a beautiful piece of art. And it's like, okay, we're starting with a blank canvas. And I look at you and I'm like, okay, what kind of things do you see in yourself that you really like? And then we kind of put that picture together, and then we look, okay, where do you want to see yourself? And what patterns are you recognizing that got you to this point? And then we kind of take a look at, okay, like what other paths would you like to take, and what's kind of blocking you? And then from there, we create this beautiful blueprint plan that we put into small attainable actions once a week. And I sit down with you. It's like, okay, let's do this. And I'm basically like a cheerleader in your pocket, and I motivate the heck out of you to get there. But my joy in life comes from helping others. I've always naturally, I feel like I've been that way. And I've come from a lot of hard places, but I feel that that's a blessing and a gift, because I'm able to really be able to share it, not know exactly what everybody's going through, but to have a little bit of knowledge around it and a little bit of experience around what I'm trying to help you with. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. That's a journey.
Well, we kind of skimmed along the surface
of
that, because it's like going through a divorce and it going to the Supreme Court. I'm like, that doesn't sound like any small task.
No, there's so much, right? And it was funny when I was looking at, I knew you were going to ask this question at the very beginning. I'm like, well, how do I, like, I've had so much happen, but at the same point, I'm like, how do I break that down in a half an hour? I'm like, well, anyway.
Well, you have such a beautiful, cheery, vibrant spirit. I'm sure it didn't necessarily feel that way during certain phases of it, especially when you're dealing with controlling people that are very manipulative. And unfortunately, the reality of that is it happens a lot more than I ever realized. Just connecting with my local organization that helps women out of these difficult situations, and having another close personal friend who's going through it now. That is such a strain and a drain on you, and trying to be up for your children and getting back on your feet and going to work. That just, to me, that's like forging a diamond, when you go through such intensity and such heat, that this beautiful, shiny, gorgeous thing comes out of it, and that your heart's still full. You're not bitter or angry, or I don't sense any of that whatsoever.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's amazing. And honestly, you have such good points, and looking at it, it is really tough. And I just feel like I went through all of that for a reason. And I'm like, now it's time to put myself out there more to help people through it, because yeah, you're right. for that relationship piece, you're in love and you've sworn your life together, and then something happens that's just so mind-boggling that you're just like, I just don't even know how that could possibly happen, and it just crushes you, right? But to pick the pieces up, I want to be able to help others to, that are going through those unfortunate situations, to say, hey, there's life after it, and look at it as a lesson, but look at it as a fresh beginning in life, right?
It is, and it's a journey that will end.
Yes,
I
yeah.
would imagine in the midst of it, it seems like it's never going to end.
No, it's like waking up in a nightmare. It is. It's like, oh my God. But I think what's really important is to have the right, supports in place. And I feel very blessed that for me, I was able to get through it without any, like, I didn't turn to drugs or drinking. And I think just because I learned, from a very young age, just to trust him, I think I did trust in myself, and I spent a lot of time on my own, just knowing who I was. And I think if you can try to get through things the best that you can, and then the other piece is reaching out for help and support, right? And knowing that you're not alone. Like, I have huge faith in the support system that I've been able to receive, and I think it's all in being open to receiving as well, that will bring the right people into your life to help support you.
That's so true, especially for those situations too, where they've cut you off from your friends and your family.
Yeah, it is. It's and it's interesting because we don't quite understand it while we're going through it as much as we then can once we get out of the situation that we're going through. You can really reflect on oh, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, I was telling you there was red flags. Right? So yeah, part of my practice is writing out your list of, like, what you need and what you will not settle for. Like, what are the red flags?
Well, that the two things that stand out too, one is get support,
Yeah.
that there is support out there. That is so critical. And the other piece that I heard that I think is really important is learning how to love yourself.
Yeah.
And forgive yourself for your mistakes and just being naive. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't know what you didn't know.
No, exactly. And I think that's another piece too that I do teach in my wellness practice is learning to really just um, be able to give yourself that self forgiveness, because we hold on to a lot of guilt, and that guilt can eat us up like no one's tomorrow, right? And I think honestly, if you can just give yourself create an awareness around, again, coming back to patterns, and saying, okay, what is my self-talk? Like, and giving yourself the ability to recognize how much you're doing. So for instance, what I used to do with kind of being bullied at a younger age, it put me into like eating disorders as well. So I was really about my appearance and being really thin and all that. And so it really impacted me as I went along in my adult life. And there'd be times I'd be looking in the mirror and I didn't have the awareness, but I reined it in. And I was like, how many times am I telling myself, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not, you're not going to be able to get this job, like you can't help others, like. And I actually recorded myself one morning, like I wrote down how many times, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it was almost 100 times from morning to the afternoon that I had been in the mirror. It was like about 75 times that I had basically, whether it was one moment of like, you're not good enough, you don't look good enough, like. So at that point I'm like, okay, I need help. I need support. This is a lot, right? So I did get the support that I needed, and then I started to practice what I was learning, and just learn to look in the mirror and replace us, like treat it like you were talking to your best friend. Like, would you tell your best friend, hey, you really look like shit. I'm sorry, but like, get it together, girl. And it's like, no, like, you're doing great. Like, so just giving yourself more positive affirmations, being able to then put those into a pattern of good self-talk, right? So whether it's writing, positive words on the mirror, and just kind of reminding yourself. And And then just being, like you said, being able to forgive yourself and be able to then just lead yourself with love, but also just don't be so hard on yourself. And a lot of the times when I'm working with people is that we'll work in the moment of where they're at, right? And maybe last week we met and they were just like, let's do this, I'm good. But then, sometimes we'll meet and maybe they have two of the goals down and they didn't actually finish the last goal. And it's like, that's all right. Maybe that wasn't meant for you to be working on, or maybe there's a different way we can look at it, right? So a big piece, I think, to be successful in what I'm doing and what I've seen is just treating and meeting people where they're at, and being able to offer tools that reflect where they're at and be able to change and help support where it's needed.
Yeah, that self-talk. I mean, I suffered from it when I was younger from my conditioning, and changing that self-talk. It's almost like a starting place,
Yeah,
because especially if you've been around somebody that's been putting you down for a really long time and you start to believe it,
yeah.
to change that conversation. That you were such a gift. I mean, there are so many women that could really benefit from your services and your life experiences and what
Uh,
you're going through to get that support that they need, because not
yeah.
everybody can do what you're doing.
Thank you. That means that I just got goosebumps. I really appreciate it. Like I really do. I've had all this stuff happen, and I really, with my coaching, I feel good, but a lot of it, I'm just like, I need to do more, and I want to do more, right? And so, I mean, I remember, to just go back for 2 seconds when I was with, so I had two super controlling relationships, and the first one was more like around food and around looks, and so I would be eating, and he'd be like, you're not going to finish that, are you? Your butt's huge. And I was like 105 pounds. And I was just like, oh, like, no, okay. And so he'd basically take my food and finish it for me before I could finish it. Right. I was just like, oh my gosh, I look at that now. And I'm like, oh, like if I can help anybody to recognize some really bad red flags, I am here. I got you. But, I wouldn't stand for that now. I'd be like, no, you go, gonna take your burger too. But
Right?
it takes some time.
Leave my plate alone.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when I'm done.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no, but it's so true. And it can happen in such subtle ways. I mean, I didn't even learn about the word gaslighting until like 2 years ago. And then looking back at my first marriage, that's what my husband did to me at the time. But I was naive. I didn't understand, or I didn't know.
Yeah.
All I knew is it wasn't right.
Yeah.
That's all I could tell you, is they knew it wasn't right. And I made a decision. Do I want to live in this relationship and this be the example to my children of what a marriage is?
Yeah.
Or would we be better off being two single happy people
Yeah.
and let that be the experience? And so I chose the latter. um
Wow.
but it took me a long time to to commit to that decision, because it wasn't, as it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, and good for you, right? That's so brave, because it takes courage, and it takes looking at the whole picture, and sorry, like I'm a big energy type person, and you seem like you lead with your heart, right? You seem like you have that really good sense about you, and that probably was hard because you wanted to make sure your kids are okay, right? And a lot of us, or from what I've seen, a lot of people stay in the relationship just because they think it's making their kids happy, right? And then you get out of the relationship, they're like, no, we're really glad you got out. As they're older,
Right. Or
whatever.
if you
But
stay, then you got to deal with the aftermath of what your children have to work out because you
yeah,
didn't work it out, you
yeah,
know?
actually,
So,
yeah,
I
no,
mean, the feedback I get from my kids, when they look back, I mean, for a long time, there's a natural order to things. And so they wish you would get back with the ex, because that's in their mind the natural order of things. But
yeah.
then as they became teenagers, they're like, how were you and dad ever married? I was like,
Yeah.
case in point,
It's so true, right? It's so true. And kids, I think as long as you can be open in communication, and they really sense your happiness, right? And so, if you can do everything in your power to make each other happy, you can, then the kids will sense that, right? And like you say, as they get older, they do or from my experience, they have understood, and they are now following in different patterns, right? Because that's another piece too, if I can kind of highlight, is for me, I found out too late how to recognize my unhealthy patterns, and that stemmed from being raised in more of a controlling environment, and then that was what I was picking as my partner, right? And partners, I was like, oh, because that's what I was used to. And
Right.
so it's interesting now. I look at the two lifelong partners that I had, and they're very similar in that control aspect. And so, I try to tell my kids, I'm like, okay, like I don't speak badly, but I'm just like, recognize your patterns because it gets you to a place, and you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't realize it. So it's just, and it could just take small changes, right? And that's the biggest piece, is having that bravery to be able to change what it is about that dynamic that's drawing those types of people to you, right? And so that's been a real journey for me, and that's one thing I would like to work on, not only for myself, and be working on to help others to recognize their patterns, and hopefully stop create better patterns as they go along.
Right, because that was your part in it. We all have this, I talked to a psychologist a couple years ago, and I asked him, in a room of 100 people, if somebody had an alcoholic father, how is it that they're going to find the one alcoholic out of 100 people, and that's who they're going to be drawn to? And
Yeah.
he was saying, because that's what's familiar.
Yeah, it is, right? It really is. Like it goes from family member to family member, and it's just how I think it's just how we operate, right? And I think that I'm really thankful that there's so much more information out there, and that, back in, even in my time of when I was in those relationships, there wasn't as much, well, we didn't have access. I actually am sounding really old, like way back in my day. But there's a lot more information out there for people and help, right? So I'm really thankful for that. But yeah, I think that and I know I just want to get this one more piece in, if that's okay,
Oh,
and just
please.
kind of taking a spin. But I believe in magic in life. Like, so for me, a piece of my coaching that I really love is being able to find out what your gifts are, because I believe everybody is born with different gifts and talents, and we are so busy in life, and we're not stopping to actually reflect and take time out in the mornings to meditate, or after work, or just to self-discover. And for me, like everybody, like you say, it's like a diamond in the rough. It's like, what do you have? Like, if I could ask, like, for you, what do you feel your biggest gift is that in your life that you bring?
I feel like I have a very deep, I call it a spiritual common sense.
Yes.
And that's my gift. That's my, it was with me all along, but it took me a long time to recognize it, or to know that I had it,
Yeah.
because I had
And how did
nothing
you
to bounce it off of, because I was raised in a military family. So my spirituality and my understanding of life, and understanding what things didn't seem right. I remember at 7 years old looking at the sky in the backyard one day, just out of the blue, don't even know why I said it. I'm like, this is all wrong. To
really?
this,
Oh,
yeah. So I always had this deep inner knowing,
yeah.
but I didn't know that I knew, till I had to go through my trials and tribulations before. And that's really what my reverend means for me, is I revere, honor, and respect my higher self. Because trust
Oh,
me, there was a
yeah.
many, many years that I thought the little self, knew better.
Yeah.
And through the school of hard knocks, I've come to just really honor and respect that part of me that wants the highest and best good for me, and
Oh,
and take action on it, even if it seems ridiculous, or
yeah.
even if I feel scared. If it's
Yeah.
telling me don't do it, don't do it. If it's telling me, that you need to do this and come in front of the camera and be out in front of people, it doesn't matter if you're uncomfortable, you'll get used to it. And
Yeah.
sure enough, now I don't even think about it.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing this work for?
Just 8 months.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
let's go fist bump.
I know. So, it's never too late, right? It's never too late.
And I think you had a really good point as well, is having like finding kind of putting faith in yourself over fear, right? And I think that's just in itself life-changing, right? When you can actually go, okay, really what, and the way sometimes I'll get through it is like, what is the worst case scenario that could happen? Okay, well, it's fine. Like for most of the things, it's far, like the best things coming out of what you're going to do far outweighs, maybe the two or three things that might kind of, I might come across. But I think for the most part, if we can just kind of lead with that faith and just go, okay, if I'm not changing anything that I'm doing, then how am I going to change my outcome? Right. And so having that initial first step towards that change, that momentum, it takes a lot of courage. So
It does take, but that's why it's so important to have the support.
Yes. Yeah.
To do it and not try to be a solopreneur or do it solo on your own. I mean, you can, but why? There's so many people like yourself that are here ready and it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not one-sided because somebody's like, oh well, I don't want to be a bother or you know not even thinking enough of yourself to be worthy of getting help. But the reverse of the gift is they're giving you the gift of being able to pay it forward and be a service to them. So it's always a two-way street.
Oh, I love that. No, I couldn't agree with you more. It's amazing.
Well, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. I'm so grateful that you did this interview with us today and sharing who you are and your journey. And we will be sure to put Sheri-lee's links above this interview so that you can get a hold of her if you want to connect with her. And Sheri-lee, thank you again so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. You're such a blessing. And yeah, woohoo, let's go. Go have a great day.